Today on Locked On Canadiens, it is the Christian Dvorak season review. We're going to figure out who, if anyone, is going to replace the very critical minutes that Christian Dvorak played on the Montreal Canadiens this year.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode 1317 of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that supports us here on the show and ensures you do not miss an episode. It also enters you in our contest. We are running a subscriber contest on YouTube. So if you are subscribed and you write contest entry down below the video, you will be entered to win a signed photo of Josh Anderson once we hit 4,500 subscribers and Arbor Xhekaj once we hit 5,000. So good luck and keep subscribing. Thanks so much for all your support. Really appreciate it. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as @Maybe It's Ian, and I am joined, as I always am, by the incomparable Laura Saba, the actor Stick. Laura, how are we feeling today?
We are excited to dissect Christian Dvorak, mostly because we've been talking a lot about who's going to replace his minutes this season. So I'm glad to finally have some time to just really dive into it.
Yeah, me too. I think, we've been pretty hard on the, Christian Dvorak is very important train. And I think today will be a great way for us to explain why that is and find some potential replacements should it not be Christian Dvorak coming back to Montreal next year. So we'll cover on those things. And we'll finish with a segment of 2C or not 2C. We have some viewer suggestions. One will be Pew Suter out in Vancouver. We'll talk about him. But also it seems like there's an appetite from some of our listeners to just have Kirby Dach come back and have him be the player we kind of hoped he'd be. So we'll cover both of those angles in our 2C or not 2C in our final segment today. But let's start with one Christian Dvorak. Laura, I've been bad about starting with the word. So let's start with the word on Christian Dvorak. Do you have one that comes to mind when we do this player season word association?
Imbalance.
Interesting. Give me more.
So all the first half of the season, we crapped on this guy. He provided negative value to the Canadiens. It took him a while to find his niche, so to speak. He was not the only one that experienced this, and the team as a whole was not great. But once he found it, he really found it. Like, once he found it, he made it so we felt like there's a possibility that we can't live without Christian Dvorak past the trade deadline. And, Kent Hughes kept him on the team.
Yeah, I took a very similar angle to this. My word is critical, in that at the beginning of the season, everyone was heavily critical of this player. I think looking at the cap hit and less so the role he was assigned to play, because I think he played the role that he needed to pretty well all year. We just kind of expected more from him for some reason. And then it became obvious that he was critical to the Montreal Canadiens, and he still is as of right now, where we don't know who's going to be playing in the spot that he held. So critical is my word. So we kind of looked at this from the same angle coming into this player review. Let's go through some numbers for Christian Dvorak. Played all 82 games, 12 goals, 21 assists for 33 points, 16 penalty minutes. So didn't spend a ton of time in the box in the regular season. He also had 2 goals in the playoffs, which was tied with Slafkovsky and Suzuki for second behind Cole Caulfield. At 5-on-5, he was the only center with a positive high danger chances for at 50.82 per natural stat trick. He had the best expected goals for among his line, I should say, of him, Brendan Gallagher, and Josh Anderson had the best expected goals for percentage among regular lines on this hockey team at 53.8%, 55.8 at the faceoff dot, which was astounding. Only Evans won more draws at 591 or 593 rather, but he took way more than Christian Dvorak did, so his percentage is lower. The big thing, though, is something that Christian Dvorak cannot control, and that is that he's left-handed, or at least he shoots left. That is the big thing that we need to focus on with this player. And I know it seems silly, but the Canadiens down the middle are missing that option. They tried to put Alex Newhook into that spot, and it's, to mixed results. We'll see what they end up doing in that regard. What did you think of the season that Christian Dvorak ended up putting together? When you hear me go over those stats, what sort of sticks in your mind?
I think it's going to be very hard to replace him. That's what sticks in my mind. I think that the load that he bore is much more significant later on. And it's crucial to also highlight the fact that when he was good, the rest of the team was also good, right? Like
Yeah.
that was the thing. I'm not saying he was the driver. I'm saying that he was one of the reasons. They were all reasons, right? Like I can't think of anyone who had a worse second half than they had a first half on
Yeah.
this team at all. And
Yeah.
so I feel like he's a cog in the wheel.
Yeah, I think so. And look, like this is a really popular player. Um, not only, among not only from this show. Like I think I really have grown to appreciate the game that Christian Dvorak brings because it's not sexy, right? Like it's not
No.
what we want to see from it's not like when we think of hockey, an NHL player, it's not what we think of. But
It's
he
also the baggage that comes with it, right? Like the
exactly,
reason he's here is also a huge part of that context. And it got to a point where we were talking like, we were laughing about how he had negative value in a trade. Like
yeah,
adding him to a trade makes it less attractive, right? And
yeah.
that's the point we were at. So I do think that there's a lot of emotional a component to the way that we've thought about Christian Dvorak over the last few years,
Yeah.
but he really showed his value in the last few months.
Yeah, you're the reason he's here is a huge part of the context of the evaluation of this player. And you can argue that, while Christian Dvorak points wise hasn't been all that successful, he's not that far behind Jesperi Kotkaniemi, which is the reason he's in Montreal to begin with. And Christian Dvorak he had a role. He carved out a role for himself on this team, which you can not really say for Jesperi Kotkaniemi, who continues to be, a scratch in the playoffs at times for the Carolina Hurricanes, which is just unfair. But that's the reality of. I know they weren't traded for each other, but that was Bergevin's plan B when Kotkaniemi got offer sheeted. I just think that this player, like I've grown to appreciate that role a lot more. And I do want to talk about just briefly, before we talk about the options to replace him next season or just bringing back Dvorak, I want to talk about the whole thing about, well, this is blocking Owen Beck from getting into the NHL. I disagree. And I disagree because Owen Beck is right-handed. He shoots right. If anyone is blocking Owen Beck from getting into the NHL, it's not Christian Dvorak or whatever lefty they acquire to fill that spot. It's honestly Jake Evans, right? Jake
Right.
Evans is the block. He's the right-hand shot center on the fourth line who wins a ton of draws, and Owen Beck is trying to aspire to at least, enter the NHL as. He's going to have a hard time usurping that player. He's going to have to have an incredible training camp, and the wheels are going to have to fall off for Jake Evans in order for that to work. Do you see it that way? Do you see like that those players being blocked by Christian Dvorak or insert player who we'll talk about in the second segment?
No, because as you have pointed out, if they were ready, they would be here. If the
Yeah.
Montreal Canadiens thought that Owen Beck was ready to take this step, they wouldn't be looking for an option to trade Christian Dvorak to replace Christian Dvorak. And the thing is, like they could sign him for just a year, right? If they think Owen Beck is like a year away. And again, like I don't think, I do think that Owen Beck has third line center potential, but you are missing that shot right now. You are missing that shot. You need to put it somewhere. So it could also be dependent on who they get as their 2C, which I know we're going to talk about later in this
Yeah,
episode.
I think if Beck at this point breaks into this team, it's on the wing to start, which is getting crowded because then, Florian Jackie's not that far from making that sort of impact as well. And, we're not too far away from potentially looking at Luke Tuck as an option for that sort of bottom, not even really bottom six, just fourth line guy to come in and make an impact.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, they don't need Guy, right? What
No,
they don't need Guy. They need face-offs. Like, the face-offs are a weakness on this team, especially in crucial draw, right? In crucial situations and crucial deployments. So, that's the consideration they're gonna make. It's not Guy. It's who can do these things that Christian Dvorak is currently doing.
yeah, yep, totally agreed. All right, we'll leave Christian Dvorak's season review there. When we come back, I have 4 potential replacements for Christian Dvorak, and we'll argue whether or not it just makes sense to keep the player who is part of the circle of friendship for this Montreal Canadiens team. And we'll get into all that in just a minute. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk or on a road trip, or I just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. I especially like the different varieties of no-shell pistachios, like the sea salt and vinegar and the chili roasted. Those are my go-tos. And if you love cracking into every shell for that satisfying crunch, don't worry, they haven't forgotten about you. The in-shell options are always a classic favorite. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, Laura, we are back, and I have 4 dudes to talk about who could potentially do what Christian Dvorak did this season for the Montreal Canadiens. These are all free agent options. I'm not looking at trades. I'm looking at guys to come in and sign a fresh deal, and the Montreal Canadiens can at least have some control over the term and dollar amount of that contract. The first one I have here is a name that I've mentioned in the past, and that's Lars Eller. He knows Montreal well. His last contract was 2 years, $2.45 million per. He's 36 years old. He went 52.2% at the draw. I think what it really comes down to is, does Lars Eller have a bad taste in his mouth when it comes to Montreal? Like, is that something he would be able to get over to come back to this hockey team?
I mean, he went and won a Stanley Cup, so hopefully he'd be over that part.
You'd think. And I mean, it's a different team entirely. Like, there's not. It would just be Gallagher, really,
Yes.
who's here.
Yeah.
That would be it. So, it would be a completely different environment for him, and he would have that role. We wouldn't be expecting more from him like we did the first time, in Lars Eller 1.0 in Montreal. He would have a third line center role, and that's what we would expect from him. And there would be, he'd penalty kill, and that would really be it. So I like that option. I'm wondering, with players as they get to be that age, where the drop off is, where it just completely, sometimes players get to that age and the floor just drops out and they're not even playable anymore. I don't think Lars Eller is that kind of guy, but that is one of the options for the Montreal Canadiens. The next one I'm going to name is a little bit of a luxury option if you're Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton. Yanni Gourde. He's coming off of a 6-year, $5.16 million deal. He's 33 years old, only 49.6% at the faceoff dot last season. I say it's a luxury option because I just think that player is going to be too expensive.
Yes.
Not even like in regards to his production, just his perceived value across the league has always been really high, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it would be fun. That'd be a player who would be coming home, so to speak, right? He's from the area.
Also, he's very impactful, right? Like, in my mind, he's quite impactful, right? Like, that face-off percentage isn't glowing. But at the same time, he's definitely a guy who drives play.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that that's what the Canadiens would want. He's probably not of the size that Montreal would really be looking for down the middle. We know that they want people who are bigger and, Kent Hughes mentioned the word compete. I think Yanni Gourde has that compete, but might not have the size to fill up. The last 2, I think, in doing my research, were my favorite options at 3C for the Montreal Canadiens. Not named Christian Dvorak. I would personally just love to have Christian Dvorak back.
They love him or two.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be a long deal. He's coming off. Let's do Christian Dvorak first. He's coming off that 6-year deal where he made $4.45 million per year. Look, he's a known quantity. We at least, amongst the coaching staff and the players, they know what to expect. That Anderson, Dvorak, Gallagher line was excellent, especially in the playoffs. I thought they were really great. But that they leaned on that line towards the end of the regular season when they needed to, move the play the other way. It really just comes down to how much of a pay cut is he willing to take and how much is he going to make on the open market? Like, what would you pay if you were another team looking to acquire Christian Dvorak this summer? What would you pay for him?
I would give him 3 years as opposed to the 2 that I want the Canadiens to give him. And I definitely, like, the number would begin with a 4, but for the Canadiens, I don't think it's worth it if the number begins with a 4.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
It's got to be a 3, a high 3, but it's got to be a 3.
Yeah, I think 3.5, and I'm just like, that's probably it. And that's not to say that he's not worth it, and it's probably why he's going to go to market, because someone will pay him for these minutes. It's very
They'll pay
important.
him,
Teams look
yeah,
for this
they'll pay
guy.
him 5. They'll pay him
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, a guy that can win faceoffs and penalty kill for me, cool. That's awesome. Like teams love acquiring that guy. Every year they're always looking for a player like that.
Yes.
I think that's why there are some thoughts to keeping him in Montreal. And for those reasons, he might have priced himself out of playing in Montreal.
Yeah.
We'll see
Unless
how
he
willing
really
he is
wants
to come
stay.
down.
Yeah, unless
Yeah.
he really wants to stay, or Kent Hughes is willing to bite that, right? Because like he has to make more than Jake Evans, and I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, well, and Jake Evans, right? They kind of got to a point with him where he was willing to come down to stay on this team.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
talked about that and potentially that being something that could leak through the rest of this roster as guys take less to keep
stay.
playing in this city that seems to have formed a really strong bond with this hockey team, but stay around your friends. And hockey players, for what it's worth, like to be where their stuff is, and they don't really love moving around all that much. The no trade clauses aren't so much I love being here and want to stay here. It's more I don't want to move. Moving's the worst.
Yeah, it's like I don't want my life disrupted.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the Christian Dvorak case. Let's look at the two that I really like from a Canadiens perspective. The first one, Sean Kuraly. His last contract was a 4-year deal worth $2.5 million per year. He's 32 years old, 54.3 at the faceoff dot, and he started 70% of his starts in the defensive zone.
Love it.
That is the guy that you would put there, right? I think
Love
personally.
it.
Yep. 6'2", 6'2", 163 hits. That would have been 5th on Montreal in hits this year. That seems like exactly the kind of guy they would love to plug into that spot. No,
honestly, I'm sold.
Yeah.
What are his downsides?
I mean, I would imagine he's going to make more than that $2.5 million. I think he probably is going to want something, 4 more years at this point. He's 32, so that would be taking him to his 36-year-old season. This is probably his last chance to cash in, so to speak. So he's probably going to be looking for north of 3. And at that point, if that's what the offer you have for Christian Dvorak, and maybe you have 2 years instead of 4, that might be what works out for you. So Sean Kuraly remains an option. I like that too. I love the numbers that were given there. I think it makes a ton of sense. The other one is a very similar player in Radek Faksa. He's coming off of a 5-year deal worth $3.25 million. He's 31 years old, 57% at the faceoff dot. He's 6'3". He had 115 points, or 115 hits. 115 points. We're not talking about 3C. That's we're talking about, move over Nick Suzuki. No, 115 hits. So very similar, right? Like this is a player who, is going to win you a ton of draws, and he's going to be a little bit more physical than Christian Dvorak. On that line, they kind of lean on Josh Anderson to take the mantle there when it comes to forechecking. Something I don't think you need to really convince Josh Anderson to do. I think he gets out of bed and wants to hit somebody into the end boards. So that's another option. I think even if it's not one of those players, I think that's if they can't get Christian Dvorak to come back, that is the type of player I think they're going to be trying to acquire, right? Maybe slightly more physical Christian Dvorak. Even if it costs you a bit more, I think that's important.
Yeah, someone who could throw the body, and then like Josh Anderson, instead of having 8 injuries at the end of the year, will only have 4.
Yeah. No, look, it's a good point talking about the, how this branches out to the other parts of this roster, right?
Sharing the load.
We talked about Josh Anderson, taking on penalty killing as a role of his and it moving Nick Suzuki out of that role. Well, having Christian Dvorak in a spot where you could play him as a penalty killer, that helped keep Nick Suzuki off the penalty kill as well, right? Yeah. A guy that you can trust to go out there, win the opening faceoff. The other aspect of it, with when it comes to Christian Dvorak, he's often the guy out there taking the first faceoff in overtime.
Yeah,
because they know he can win it, and he's just going to try to win it. And then, right, it's either, but it's true. I mean, it's true, And the goal with him was I'm going to win the draw and then get off the ice as fast as possible, and Cole Caulfield will come over the boards and we'll try to score before the other team touches the puck.
He was so good at that.
Excellent, right? It was it, and I know it's frustrating. I hate 3-on-3. Everybody knows this about me at this point. Like that, it drives me nuts that it's been this gamified to a point where it's just, I don't know, it's a possession game at that point. Anyway, not getting into that, but he serves that point as well. Like, can these guys do that? Can you expect a Sean Kuraly to come out, win the draw, get off the ice? Like that's why I keep, when I use the word critical to define Christian Dvorak, his play touches so many different parts of what the Canadiens are trying to do.
Yeah.
All right, we will leave our 3C or not 3C discussion there. When we come back, we have 2C or not 2C. We have two players we want to talk about, Pius Suter and this guy named Kirby Dach, if you've ever heard of him. We'll talk about them when we get back. All right, we are back. Final segment here today on Locked On Canadiens. Once again, thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Thank you for subscribing. We love to see all of the engagement that we get from you guys in the comments, telling us how dumb we are or how smart we are. Either way, you listened, and that's all we really care about. We listened to you guys. We put out a poll on YouTube and asked for some suggestions on 2C or not 2C options. And Alexander Christian actually kind of had a hand in both of the ones we'll talk about today. They mentioned Pius Suter off the top, so we'll talk about him first. Pius Suter is 5'11", 179 pounds. He's a UFA, 29 years old. He just turned 29 on May 24th, so happy birthday, Pius Suter. Last season with Vancouver, 81 games played, 25 goals, 21 assists, 46 total points. Unfortunately, a 42.7% at the faceoff dot. This was also his first season with a negative turnover differential in his career. And boy, it was not pretty. 19 takeaways to 52 giveaways. That is not going to help you a lot. It kind of made me think like his scoring numbers were great. Imagine if he didn't give the puck away as much as he did.
How many points would he have then?
Yeah, he might be a 30 goal scorer. We might be looking at a 30 goal scorer if he could hold on to the puck. I like I like the thought here because it's a player that Montreal, or that a lot of people probably aren't thinking about in Pius Suter, but he just doesn't seem like a player that Montreal would be crazy about. No?
I think no, and I think size does have a lot to do with it, actually. I know we talk about how size doesn't matter, et cetera, but they have explicitly said that they're thinking about getting a little bit bigger, right? And size for size's sake is not something that the Canadiens are going to do. They need smart guys, but those point totals are very, very attractive. But I think that when you're looking at the Montreal Canadiens and they have two weaknesses, right? Or this past season, they had two weaknesses. One of them was lack of ability to win faceoffs, other than Christian Dvorak, really. And two, they gave the puck away a lot, particularly in the first half of the season. So those two things, I think, do not add to the fact that he's small, right? Like, and again, like I think that I love the way that our listeners think a lot of the time, because this is definitely someone who's not at the top of everyone's list. I just think that the weaknesses do not complement the Canadiens in any way.
Yeah, and I will say Alexander Christian, who floated this idea, said that they did want that option, but they've kind of been talked back into the idea of Kirby Dach. Along with Tony Legere, they've left responses to our poll saying, let's just try Kirby Dach again.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this, because I think this whole segment exists because of the Kirby Dach conundrum, right? He is part of this equation in a way that I don't think we can discount.
Yes.
Just listening to the postseason press conference where Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton were talking about Kirby Dach, they said it's an important summer for him. They haven't counted him out. And what Jeff Gorton said, that he has a role on this team next year. It's up to him what it is. Like, he's going to be here, but what position that is totally up to Kirby.
Yeah.
So, if we are looking at this and the Canadiens did not find an option at 2C that really, knocked their socks off, are you okay seeing Kirby Dach come back and get one more shot as the second line center on this team?
Yes. I think the Canadiens just have to be very careful about their contingency plans if he doesn't work out. There could be players that become available next year that are not available to them next year. Are they doing their homework? Are they seeing who's going to be UFA? Are they seeing which teams are looking at potentially a rebuild, especially next year, right? There's going to be a lot of people tanking, as you said. So if the Canadiens do their homework with respect to the contingency plan, I'm 100% okay with them giving Kirby Dach another shot. I think either way, they're going to give him another shot, whether they get another 2C or not. He's going to have a shot. He's going to have a shot to earn his spot back, because his spot is going to be alongside Ivan Demidov, Like, that's an incredible opportunity for any guy. So I think They will give him that shot, and I think, it's really, there's a lot that we talked about how it was in his head this year and his injury wasn't fully recovered, et cetera, et cetera. They will give him the opportunity, not because they're fair or because it's the right thing to do, et cetera, et cetera. It's because I think they still believe in him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that they do truly believe in this player. Look, he's the second really big swing that this front office made. The first one happened, I don't know, a half hour before. It was Juraj Slafkovsky getting drafted. And, my thoughts at that draft were, they needed to come away with a center. And the second they didn't pick right, my thought was, okay, you still need a center.
Yeah.
And
And they
sure
got
enough,
one.
a half hour later, they did that, which means they had that cooking the whole time. So they had the same thought that we need to come out of here with a center. They're not ready to abandon this player. And I think that what they can see in Kirby Dach and, when he does play with that high physicality, his stick checking is incredible. He's so apt to use a stick lift or a poke check to try to get the puck away from guys, but also the physicality. He's 6'4". Right? Like that's a player you want to turn out the way you want him to turn out.
Yeah. His upside is exactly what the Canadiens need. And that's the thing.
That's exactly it.
It's not like I'm not going to say his upside is elite superstar potential. That's not what I'm saying. But it's going to be, if he can hit that upside, if he can hit that ceiling or even come close to it, it's exactly what the Habs need.
Yeah, I just think that if they are looking at second line center options this summer, whether, maybe it's some of the guys that we've talked about in 2C or not 2C, and they go, it's too rich for our blood, we don't want to make that shot right now. It's okay that Kirby Dach comes back and gets another shot, right? Because I think that's going to be a highly motivated player.
Yeah.
I think it's really unfortunate what's happened to him not even since he got to Montreal. His entire career has been marred by injury. And it's not always the same injury, right? Like it's different
bad luck.
stuff.
Yeah, like he's not injury prone. It's bad luck. He's just cursed.
Yeah, it's been tough to sort of watch from that perspective. So I'm always cool to swing on talent, to give this another shot and ride this one out. It's a big year for Kirby Dach as well, because I believe it's a contract year for him. This would have been, this is the fourth year of Kirby Dach on his 4-year deal. He's a restricted free agent at the end of it, so the Canadiens still hold his rights regardless of what happens. But he's going to want to go out there and ball out, right? Like he wants to be a guy that the Canadiens see in their future.
Yeah.
I think that it is okay if they come back with Kirby Dach. But the problem with Kirby Dach is that, they said this is a big summer for him, and it is. But not only does he have to rehab and get back to game shape, but he needs to, not only find the Kirby Dach that we saw before all of these injuries, he has to be better than that, right? Like we have to see, because that Kirby Dach was playing mostly on the wing.
Yeah.
We need to see
progress.
Yes, we need to see, him come back and commit to the two-way game of all of it, right? Commit to that aspect of this as well. Be the veteran on a line with Ivan Demidov and just give him the puck and let him go nuts in the offensive zone. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think there's a very good chance we're looking at Kirby Dach as the 2C next fall. And that's going, we talked about it a lot this year. It's going to be an even bigger topic next year if the Canadiens don't have another center and they're hoping that Kirby Dach works out. So interesting stuff. I hope he works out.
Me too.
Yeah. Cool. All right, let's do our trivia and then
wait,
out of here.
That doesn't mean the Canadiens shouldn't try to get Sidney Crosby if he becomes available.
For sure. Obviously. Like
that's
right. If it can't be him, if it can't be Crosby, I guess Kirby Dach's okay. All right, let's do our trivia from yesterday, and we'll get out of here. With Caden Primo's shutout on Sunday, both Rocket goaltenders have a playoff shutout. When was the last time a Habs affiliate in the AHL accomplished that feat? Laura, do you have the answer?
I believe it was 2009-2010.
Correct.
2009-2010. Sorry, not 29.
Yes. It was the Hamilton Bulldogs. It wasn't even the St. John's.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the Hamilton Bulldogs. It was Curtis Sanford with 2 and Cedric Desjardins with 1. So that was a it's tough to find AHL stats in a concise way. So thankfully I was able to find some of those. All right, today's question. We talked about a lot of face-offs with Christian Dvorak. So with face-offs being top of mind due to the Christian Dvorak Player Review Day, who has the most face-off wins in a season in Montreal Canadiens history? So I will add a hint to this one. The NHL only started recording face-off wins in 2007 as a stat. So that is as far back as we know. So it could be someone else, but it's only from 2007 onward. So who has the most face-off wins in a Canadian season since 2007? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below. Let us know how smart you are, and we'll give you a shout-out on tomorrow's episode of the show. And that's going to do it for us today on this episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that supports us here at the show and ensures you don't miss an episode. For your second listen, go and check out the Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. They're also available on Amazon Fire TV. On your free Fire TV channels app, click the Montreal Canadiens logo in the hockey section, and you can watch all of our episodes there as well. You can find us posting about the Canadiens anywhere where we post social media, Locked On Canadiens, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok. Find us in all those places. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Active Stick. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see you guys tomorrow.